From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good morning. It was the week of deadlines in the Texas House of Representatives, and a lot of bills died. So what priorities did and didn't pass out of the lower chamber? Plus, we're catching up with Austin State Senator Sarah Eckhart. All that, but first, let's get to the 3 things you need to know in Texas politics. Governor Greg Abbott signed 3 bills into law on Wednesday. The governor says the business regulation bills will make Texas more appealing to companies looking to relocate their headquarters to the Lone Star State. The Texas Lottery is getting a bit of a lifeline from the Texas Senate. Some members of the upper chamber wanted to abolish the game, and there was even a hearing on a bill to do just that. But after realizing that would cost the state roughly $2 billion a year, a reprieve. This week, senators unanimously passed a bill to abolish the Texas Lottery Commission and transfer regulation of the lottery to the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. That bill is now in the House. Governor Greg Abbott is asking the USDA for a waiver to stop SNAP recipients from buying sweetened drinks and candy with their benefits. He sent a letter to the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Wednesday. In the letter, the governor writes, too many purchases using SNAP are for, quote, food with little to no nutritious value, end quote. According to Reuters, 4 other Republican-led states have asked for similar waivers. There are just 2 weeks left in the 89th Texas Legislature's regular session. The Senate has voted out all of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's priority bills, but not without some opposition. Austin State Senator Sarah Eckhart has been a voice opposing some of those bills in the upper chamber. She joined me from the Capitol to talk about the final weeks of the session. Talk to us a little bit about some of the opposition you have to some of the Lieutenant Governor's priority bills.
Sure. I said from the beginning of this session that the Lieutenant Governor's strategy would be to push all of his priorities in the very first days, throw them over to the House, and then dare them to not send them back just as he wanted. And that's where we are. So I mounted what opposition I could along with my colleagues in the Senate chamber before these bills were sped out of the Senate with very little scrutiny. And now they are sitting in the House. We do have some really important legislation that I think is positive and is on the move. But then we also have some suppression, surveillance, punishment type bills that are also unfortunately on the move.
You know, obviously time is not on the legislature's side, right? I mean, we are literally talking about weeks until this session is over. You know, was there something that you want to see that you think is really important that needs to pass that hasn't come back from the House yet?
Most definitely. I mean, the big priorities for us were in education finance. As we saw, the Lieutenant Governor and the Governor pass vouchers in the first days of the legislature. But school finance, to make sure that our neighborhood schools stay open, is still in negotiation in these final days. I think that indicates what kind of priority they place on public education. We also saw almost no action that materially advances health care and access to health care, much less anything that drives down the cost of health insurance. We did reduce the threat of criminal prosecution on physicians who treat pregnant women. But other than that, we didn't do a lot in access or quality of health care. I could go on if you want.
You know, I know no one at the Capitol wants to hear these 2 words that I'm going to say, but special session, do you think we could see one?
Mm-hmm. Well, interestingly, the rumors about a special session are all around topics that, frankly, I'm surprised that the governor and the lieutenant governor are so fixated on them because they're not popular with the people of the state of Texas. Things like a total ban on all THC products, things like the abolishing the lottery. These are things that do not rise to the top of the list of priorities for regular Texans. So I am inclined to think we don't have a special session, but we'll see.
Fingers crossed that you're right about that one. Senator Eckhart, we thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us.
I really appreciate you for forcing me to be thinking big picture about what this legislative session has, what it means. We still don't quite know yet, but we're getting close to the end here, and we haven't produced enough for the people of the state of Texas.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that soon. It was obviously a big week for the House of Representatives with that deadline, that midnight deadline. So many bills, failed to make it across the finish line. How are you feeling about that?
Look, I think there were lots of really great Democratic bills that died, that didn't even wouldn't even given a chance. But also at the same time, a lot of really crazy, insane Republican bills were killed as well. But right now, our biggest concern among Democrats is the passage of HB2, the school finance bill, and making sure that it is actually what our schools need.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I think that there is a very clear difference, right, between what the House wants to do and what the Senate wants to do about school finance. And I think a lot of it gets caught up on teacher pay, right? So it seems as though the House wants to increase that basic allotment substantially. We know that if you put more money in the basic allotment, a good chunk of it has to go to teachers, where the Senate just wants to take teacher pay out of the basic allotment together. And do things differently. Why do you feel the House plan is the better way to go?
So look, the House bill was a bipartisan plan that was worked out over the course of 4 months. It provided a balanced approach to everything. And so look, schools don't run just on teachers. There are a lot of other staff. They need increases in their salaries as well. We want to protect teachers, but not at the cost of making everyone else suffer. I think they're playing a political game over in the Senate. They want to make it look like they're doing a lot for teachers, but what they're actually doing is destroying what is a very balanced and purposely built bill that is designed to help keep our schools alive.
Yeah. How critical is it to fund all of those other people who help make the school run?
Look, the school systems across Texas have been screaming their heads off, saying that we're over the cliff, and they're just barely hanging on by their fingernails. And COVID and inflation took a $16 billion divot out of their budget, and HB2 still only puts in 8 of it, right? Only restores 8 of it, and that 8 has to be done in a very balanced way, because schools across Texas are different. Rural and urban are very different. And even within the same school district, you have a lot of different programs. And you have to have an approach that fixes things for everybody. And we're just really concerned that if you play political game with this bill, you could end up destroying the entire school system.
What do you think could happen in the next 14 days, right? We're not at the end yet. We're very close to the end, but there's still a little bit of time left. Do you think that there can be an agreement between the two chambers on this?
I certainly hope so, and I think this is really the time for House members, Democrats and Republicans, to say, hey, we are a co-equal branch of government. You don't just get to ignore our voices in this process. The House members worked long and hard on a very balanced and effective bill, and it would be an absolute shame for all their work and after hearing from all their constituents, for the Senate to come in, for Dan Patrick to come in and just dump it all out and set it on fire.
Yeah. Are there other pieces of legislation that you guys are focused on? We know that there are other priorities for Republicans that's hung up in the House, bail reform, THC. Talk to us about your thoughts on those bills.
Absolutely. So one of the really good bills that was killed last night was, Ann Johnson's bail bond reform bill. And this is a bill that was designed to take care of all the needs that prosecutors and judges have been asking for years. And without the unconstitutional stuff that will not survive a court challenge. That being said, we have the bail bond bills coming to the floor, a different version of it. And this is going to be more of a compromise bill. It's going to have some stuff in there that I think is kind of problematic. And we're going to have that debate on the floor. But I think Democrats are looking forward to passing bail bonds, passing school finance reform, doing a lot of things. And, we're marching forward. We're trying to get the things that Texans have been screaming about done. But there's still a lot that has not been done. They've refused to allow us to even have a discussion about raising the minimum wage. We have not real discussions about fixing the insurance market, because all the insurance providers that are leaving Texas because of climate change, because of everything else. And I think this body, while we do end up talking a lot about certain things, there's so much that is involved that is just that the Republicans who are in charge simply do not want to talk about.
It is worth noting the fat lady hasn't sung yet. There's still 2 weeks left in the session, and the House can still vote on and add amendments to Senate bills. The session ends sine die on June 2nd. That's Texas This Week.